For the Detroit Red Wings, their odds played out the way they were supposed to, not quite the way they wanted. Despite finishing with the 5th worst record in the NHL, the Wings ended up with the 6th overall pick in the upcoming NHL entry draft. At the greatest likelihood, a 34.5% chance of falling to 6th. The good news is the 2018 draft is considered to be an excellent one. Stocked with many players that are expected to have an impact in the NHL even if they don't make it this next season. As pretty much everyone has said, this is a strong draft, said Tyler Wright, the Wings director of amateur scouting. We're excited. We think we're going to get a really good player at 6. We'd have liked to be in the mix for the top 3, but that's the way it goes. The draft lottery was held in Toronto and with picks 4 through 15 announced before Game 2 between the Vegas Golden Knights and the San Jose Sharks. The league revealed the top 3 picks during the second intermission. The Buffalo Sabres had the best odds to get the number 1 overall pick, and were successful. They get to draft defenseman Rasmus Dahlin, who has been everyone's top-ranked player all season. The Carolina Hurricanes were slotted at pick 11th, but moved up to 2nd with the fourth worst record. The Montreal Canadiens had the best odds to get the 6th pick, but were moved up to 3rd. The Ottawa Senators fell to 4th. The Arizona Coyotes have the 5th pick. Obviously, Dallin has separated himself, Wright said, but there is a good mix of scoring wingers, size, competitiveness, big defensemen, some smaller defensemen. I think it's pretty interchangeable once you get 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9. If you had a magic ball and looked at everyone's draft list, it would be different. That speaks to the depth of this draft in a good way. Among the defensemen who could be available at number 6 is London Knights defenseman Evan Bouchard, who finished 4th among North American skaters in the NHL Central Scouting's final rankings. Bouchard had 25 goals, 62 assists, and was plus 23 in 76 games. TSN scouting director Craig Button has Bouchard 5th in his final rankings. Button has not separated North Americans from Europeans in his ratings. Another highly rated defenseman is Acade Bathurst's Noah Dobson, 5th among Central Scouting's North American skaters. Dobson has 17 goals, 52 assists, and was plus 33 in 67 games. Button has Dobson ranked 8th. Swedish defenseman Adam Boqvist is 2nd ranked among European skaters. Boqvist has 14 goals, 10 assists, and was plus 6 in 25 games. Button has Boqvist 6th on his list. Michigan defenseman Quentin Hughes is ranked 6th among North American skaters. Hughes, 5'10", 174 pounds, had 5 goals, 24 assists, and was plus 14 in 37 games with the Wolverines. Button has Hughes ranked 12th overall. Among possible forwards who could be available at number 6 is right wing Vitaly Kravtsov. 3rd among Central Scouting's European skaters, Kravtsov had 4 goals, 3 assists, and was plus 3 in 35 games with KHL's Tradcore. Button did not rank Kravtsov as he had not even seen him 4 times. Forward Oliver Wahlstrom, U.S. National Development Program, is 7th among North American skaters. Wahlstrom had 47 goals, 45 assists in 60 games for the U.S. National Youth 18 team. Button has Wahlstrom at number 9. Now, the Calgary owner has said before that most times in drafts, they'll take the best available talent at whatever draft level they have in every round. So, I think the way Detroit thinks, Larkin, Michigan player, grew up in Michigan, great story. Same thing with DeKaiser, Ablocator, Glendening, just to name a few. I think they'll go with Quentin Hughes because he is playing for Michigan, hometown boy kind of deal. You want that guy, and plus he's a skater, man. He was one of the fastest skaters in this draft. Now, Dahlin can control a game. Bouchard had size, but Quentin Hughes would go really well with Larkin and his speed. I think we need more of a defensive defenseman. I don't think Eriksson's really cut out for this. I think he's amazing player for the amount of, last pick in the draft. My gosh, you don't really get any steals there, but you did. Eriksson is a good defenseman, at least top 6D for sure. Now, not to grab on any kind of defensive play from Eriksson, you make great plays nights in, nights out, but, you make some bad plays too, transfer it over to other people, giveaways, just the basic stuff of a game that you need to just always do great things in an NHL game. There's no parity anymore. There's not like an 0-2 team where they can make a couple mistakes and then, have Hasek save them or do a little crazy dive to just save them. Is not a parity like that anymore, especially with our team now. My gosh, if you make one mistake, it's, 10-1 game versus Montreal because for some reason they needed payback, I guess. I don't know. I don't really see it. I think Quentin Hughes will probably be the guy. And also, I really hope that we can get Jack Hughes next year, his younger brother. He also plays for Michigan, and they say a lot of scouts, including ours and the Red Wings organization, say that Jack Hughes will go first overall. And if we got Jack Hughes and Quentin Hughes, you can't beat that. You just can't. You just have the brothers. It really does suck that we did not get second overall because we could get Shafenikov. Get the brothers together. It just makes sense. Ever since the Sedin twins, just retired this year, it really would be cool to have our own brothers and then also try and get Jack Hughes next year, but what can you do? Draft lottery is very confusing. I have seen a lot of people try to explain it. Really, it's all a matter of luck, I think. I don't think they would tamper with anything this serious as a club's future. Now, you give Edmonton Oilers McDavid, sucks. But they got Jack Eichel, It's not a bad trade-off, you don't get, 1, 2, 3 pretty good, Laine's second. My gosh, any other draft, he would be first overall Ovechkin level. The kid's great. Without him, I don't think Winnipeg would be as deadly, let's say. Granted, Nashville did stop them at, game 6, 4-0, but, have your off nights, I think. I think Winnipeg will come back and beat Nashville. I love Nashville. I love PK, Philip Forsberg looking like Pele out there. He's doing good work. He's doing good work there, man. Just putting on a show every night, kind of like Datsuk. Not quite as flashy as Datsuk. He would just come in and be like, hey, this isn't Russia anymore. I can just do whatever I want. People will be amazed. Back in Russia, people have crazy hands. Nah, they just don't have good defensemen in Russia. It's really weird. Well, they do have Gonchar. Gonchar was really good. Man, if you guys ever want to hear a great story about Gonchar and Malkin had a really nice interview with, I think it was Sportsnet. He talked about Sergei Gonchar and how awesome of a person he is. He, let Malkin live with them for a while. To make sure that, he learned the language. He got comfortable. Datsuk had Sergei Fedorov. He had a lot of people behind him, helping him out. Play with Brett Hall, and then next year you play with Zetterberg. That helps, helps you get your feet wet. Yeah, no, I think the draft will be really good this year, especially because the Wings have the most draft picks this year, and I really wish we could have gotten rid of Mike Green, but I think the injury was too much for most teams. I think, honestly, the one team that could have maybe have picked him up was Vegas, but they ended up taking Tatar, which I don't think really has panned out very well for them, and I really, really wanted Vegas to actually win the Stanley Cup, but I don't think they'll do it. I don't know. I don't see them getting past Winnipeg or Nashville, but then again, I didn't see them sweeping the Kings or beating San Jose that easily. But, you don't beat Brent Burns and Vander Kane, Pavelski, Doughty, my gosh, the guy was looking for a crazy big raise, and then they get shut out because they lose him. You know, you don't go for those dirty hits. You can't. You can't go for them anymore. You can't go for fights. You can't go for all this stuff. It does make the league a little less exciting, I would say, for casual fans, but for people like me, I mean, I love seeing the skill. I mean, back in the day, there was still a lot of skill to the game. I mean, even Gordie Howe back then, you know, watching some old highlights. I mean, of course, I'm not even close to old enough to even have watched him play or, you know, or anything like that. I've met him before. He was really awesome, but, you know, I just don't really think that the NHL is really moving away from the big guys, like the big guys, but you need big guys because if you don't have them, you don't have a net front presence. You know, Red Wings, take example. So we have Anthony Mantha, great guy, awesome person, met him, really cool guy. Scores 25 goals, does awesome stuff. I mean, you know, it does help to have Zetterberg as your center, but look past that. You know, he's got size, got amazing speed. You know, I mean, he doesn't have Larkin's speed, but, you know, nobody needs to have that, honestly, because that just, you slow down after a while, and you just have to learn on your speed, learn past it. You know, you got to learn past it, because Zetterberg, Datsyuk, if you watch their early careers, they were fast. They were so fast. Like, they would go in, break away, and then they would fall over, or they would finish most of the time, obviously, because they're amazing players, but not everybody's those two. You don't have to find Datsyuk or Zetterberg in a draft. You need to find those, you know, Tyler Bertuzzi's. You need to find those Nick Jensens. You need to find those guys that are, you know, middle of the road. You know, they're great. They can be better, of course, you know, through coach training, NHL training. I mean, just playing a game in the NHL makes you better. It makes you realize what kind of talent you're going up against. I mean, you know, on a night in, night out basis, you're going up against, you know, Carey Price, you know, just to, you know, I mean, I can name as many names as I want. I could just name the whole NHL roster. I mean, before Don Cherry, he said on the Hockey Canada Tonight that there are no bad players in the NHL. I believe that, for sure. I believe that wholeheartedly, because honestly, there are no bad players in the NHL. They have bad nights. They may have good nights. I mean, you know, McDavid doesn't have a 4-goal night on his own without having a great night, you know. And of course, you have your teammates to help, but honestly, some people just can carry a game on their back and just say, "This is mine. I will take this and run with it." Kopitar, you know, I can name a few. Crosby, you know, I mean, of course, you can name a lot, but you know, me never playing in the NHL, obviously, I really wouldn't know what exactly it takes to make a game like that happen. You know, what makes it so that Crosby gets a hat trick in, you know, one of the games versus Philly, and then gets completely turned down by Washington without Backstrom, without Tom Wilson, you know. I mean, it was a crazy, you know, I mean, just watching Ovi's reaction afterwards the game, my gosh, he was just so, it was like a weight was like taken off his shoulders, like a ton weight was taken off. I mean, my gosh, the guy aged like Obama. It was insane. He went from, like, you know, dark black hair, you know, clean shaven, to he has like these crazy gray streaks. Oh my gosh, it's insane. Then his interview with Pierre McGuire, he just let loose, man. He was like, "Oh, please, you know, effing score," and it was like, whoa, okay, you are excited. And I don't think they can beat Tampa. I want them to. I really want Ovi to get a cup. I really do. But I don't think they can beat Tampa. I'm sorry. You just can't beat a team where its second pair defenseman is Ryan McDonagh. Are you serious? Like, of course you do put your good players on different lines to expand the talent and have 4 lines of scoring, but your third line center can be Braden Point. It can be Tyler Johnson. I mean, your first line center is Stamkos. I mean, that you just can't beat that depth. I mean, you just can't. I mean, especially if, you know, if Backstrom may not come back, or Tom Wilson's his suspension does lift, but repeat offenders do get a lot of more notice. I mean, Marchand's a really good example of that, where you do something bad and they will not drop it, and that's good. They shouldn't. They should never drop it. And if you start licking people, you get 10-minute misconducts and you're kicked out of the game, because that's just not how the NHL works. If you start to embarrass the league, it doesn't matter how good of a player you are, they will make sure that you hear about it and you know about it, and you make sure that it makes an impact on your team, not just an individual. I mean, diving, you get $5,000 fine. I mean, I don't really see that being much of a slap on the wrist. I get it. Repeat offenders like Marchand really need to understand that Gary Bettman's really going to start making sure that, we need to not do that. We need to not do that at all. I mean, Tom Wilson, it did really, really suck that he had broken that guy's chin, and I apologize, the name of the guy he hit really is escaping me, my bad. But yeah, Tom Wilson, man, getting suspended for 3 games because of a lowish hit to the jaw. I don't think there was much intent to it. He could have gotten out of the way, though. He really could have gotten out of the way. I think that Wilson really needed to be suspended for that. The after effects of it, of course, helped that 3 game instead of maybe 1, because a hit to the head definitely deserves a 1-game suspension, no matter who the player, and they proved that with Doughty. I mean, you kick Drew Doughty off the Kings, man, you're playing 18-year-olds. You're playing your AHL players in the playoffs. I mean, that's a death sentence. I mean, you lose Doughty, you lose like Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook in one fell swoop. I mean, you're losing your almost 2 defensemen. He plays so many minutes, it's almost like he's considered, a first and second line defenseman. He's amazing. So, but yeah, to circle back to the draft, I totally got sidetracked there. But to circle back to the draft, I think the Red Wings will draft Quentin Hughes. I think they will. I will put my stake my first show on it. But I think that, Evan Bouchard, I think they learned their lesson last year with drafting size, not speed and skill. Giovanni Smith, good example. He looked like a good talent, and he still is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have not played at any of those levels whatsoever, but watching these guys play, I think that they're good. They're, of course, good. I mean, they're like Abelkader. They have speed. They're good. They have some size, but you need to have those really fast skaters. I mean, look at the NHL now in a cap era. You have to plan around that. You need to have those talented, skilled players you get really, really early on in the draft, like a Laine, a Matthews, a Marner, a McDavid, or a Crosby, or of course, Detroit did really get away with that with Datsuk and Zetterberg, but that's just because we were early on going into European markets and get Swedes, get Russians. Lindstrom definitely proved that. I mean, today he would be first overall. I mean, Matt Sundin definitely deserved to be first overall. I think he really did, as the first Swede to do it. And now Dahlin will go first overall, for sure. I mean, you'd be stupid to not take him first overall. It'd be like not drafting McDavid. It would make no sense. Buffalo will definitely be a better team for 3 years with him. Because, entry-level deals are where it's at. Because Peter Chiarelli really screwed up the market when he gave Draisaitl an $8 million contract for 1 year of first-line production. I mean, you give McDavid 12.5 makes complete sense to me. Complete sense. I mean, he was hyped up. He's still good. I mean, you give a 4-goal night and you just carry a game on your back and you're good. Earned everyone's respect, including Crosby's. I mean, McDavid definitely is on par with him where he was at in his career early on. If anything, he may be a little bit better because, Crosby had some good line mates, and then he got Malkin pretty soon after, so it helps too. You get Gonchar, you had Mario Lemieux playing with you on the same team. It may be an older one, but hey, Lindstrom, even when he was a little older, I mean, he's my favorite player. I will say that nonstop on this show, but man, Lindstrom is my favorite player to ever play in the NHL and will always be, because he was just so impact making. He just made an impact. Every time you were on the ice against him, you noticed him and you wanted to take him out, but you just couldn't. You just can't. He's just fast, he's skilled, he's amazing at his position. I mean, he's definitely the best positional player defensive-wise. I mean, maybe Bobby Orr was better offensively. There's definitely been better offensive defensemen. But then again, Lindstrom had over 800 assists, so I don't know about that either. But, we do have a good guy on our team, Mike Green. He's good. I wish they had gotten rid of him, but I don't really. I think that injury really didn't help. But yeah. Anyways, the draft. I think Quentin Hughes will go first. Obviously, when you go past the first round, it's a little harder to get an eye on what will be drafted. But I mean, who will be drafted? I mean, these kids are going into it real scared. I think most of them know where they're going. Maybe not though. I mean, a lot of it's a little up in the air when it comes to hockey. First overall, they know for sure. And of course, you get the call beforehand, and then they know when they go up and they, get the jersey and everything, and it's great. It's an awesome moment to draft a young player and make sure that they're in your organization and they're with you, and it's awesome. I mean, just to give you an idea of the loyalty you can get from just drafting a player is, Tavares. I mean, the guy still wants to stay in the New Islanders organization. They did get Barzal, so that does help. But I think Islanders don't need Tavares. They don't need him. I mean, of course they need a first-line center, and I don't know if Barzal would be able to do that. I don't know. I don't know if they need Tavares. You have, a player like that, and you have a superstar, but honestly, I think Vegas has really proven you don't need a lot of superstars to win a game. Of course, a lot of players there are playing over their heads, and maybe they'll come back down the next year. I mean, I think a lot of them will get extensions. I mean, I would think you'd want to keep that team together the best you can. I mean, even down to little players like Colin Miller or, Willem Karlsson will get his extension, so will Marchessault, so will Riley Smith, so will maybe Fleury. I don't know. I thought maybe that Pittsburgh would just re-sign him, and I think they need him. I think they really need him. I don't know. I don't know what was going on with Matt Murray in those games. Glove side. That's all I have to say. Just watching those games, man. I don't know what was up with that. I mean, they just found his weakness and they just plugged away at it. I mean, Ovi was killer there. I mean, just watching that happen was like, wow, no Fleury equals they're in trouble. I mean, of course, Matt Murray got them, through the first cup, which was shocking, honestly. I mean, Matt Murray is definitely an elite goaltender. He is, for sure. I mean, they got to the playoffs, with an amazing record, so it makes sense. You keep them around. They were not going to protect Fleury. It made no sense. An older goaltender, maybe needs an extension at some point in the future, but, I don't think they'll keep Fleury, keep him signed, in Vegas. I think maybe they'll try to develop from within, and maybe soon they'll be bad, but that's okay. An expansion team will at some point be bad. I mean, every team in the NHL will be bad at some point, even the Chicago Blackhawks, even the Pittsburgh Penguins. It just takes time. You lose Crosby, Malkin, who do you have to build around then? Of course, you can't tell 5 years into the future with the NHL. You just can't do that. I mean, you can't see the McDavids 9 years out. I mean, they're kids, yes, you can scout youth, like very youth players. And of course, there's YouTube videos of viral people going out like Wahlstrom. Actually, there's a really cool video with him being really young. I think in like a Little Caesars league, I think it was, or maybe it was a younger league. My bad, I can't remember the name of it, but he has a really cool YouTube video of him just picking up the puck and swinging it around and shooting it in, and then 8 years later, or excuse me, like at 8 to 7 years later, you're in the NHL draft and you're expected to go, I said, like 8th overall. Man, that's a jump. That's a big jump. So maybe you can scout 5 years in the future. Who knows? But I think that Detroit is a huge example of that. You have Larkin, you have Mantha, you have Anthony Ciu. I can name every player on the team, but that's the thing when you have such success, 25 years of in the playoffs, in today's cap era of having to have entry-level deal contracts on your team, you need that because you need to be able to go out and sign free agents or develop from within and then give those guys contracts like Erik Karlsson or Tavares or Doughty, or you need to give these guys contracts because if you don't, they'll go to other teams. I mean, there's loyalty, of course, you can pay a guy for loyalty, and that's fine. Zetterberg has been with us forever, and I love Zetterberg, amazing guy, really cool to meet him, of course. And as a captain, he makes everyone around him better. Do you think Larkin would have had an amazing first year if he hadn't been on a line with Zetterberg for most of it? The guy just helps everything. From being captain of the Swedish team, he did have to turn it down for health reasons, but he was named the captain with Erik Karlsson in that lineup, with all these guys. It's amazing to have him still around, but just to kind of circle around and just say, we will get better. We will get better as a Detroit team. We will get better just like Chicago did, just like Pittsburgh did. They did get lucky with the NHL lockout, but yeah. So I think the Detroit team that we have right now is pretty good. As a rebuilder, we're pretty good. We have Larkin, we have Mantha, we have a lot of good pieces. We just need defense, and that's why I think in the draft this year we will go for a lot of high-skilled defensemen and a few goaltenders, I think. Scoring wingers are pretty easy to find. They are hard to find very good ones like Shafenikov, Zadina, but those guys will go in first, second, third, fourth. We won't be getting them, and that's fine. They'll go to teams and they'll make them much better, but I think we'll get Quentin Hughes. Again, just to say it, I think without jinxing it, we will get him in that spot because he is projected to go later, but I think we'll pick him up early on, and I think we'll be getting a steal. A fast skating defenseman. Most people keep saying that we will get Evan Bouchard, the London Knights captain. He's 6'3", had a lot of points, leading that league pretty well. He's been doing really good work down there. But I think we're shying away from size. I think we're really shying away from size. After Mantha took a long time to develop, and I like Mantha a lot, and I think him having 25 goals is a product of him taking a little while to develop and get his game in the right place that he wants it, and he's been doing great. He wasn't even on the line with Zetterberg for a little while, and he was still producing. So, you put, Zetterberg is your first-line center, of course. You have Larkin. You have some prospects coming through. They're there. We don't have the biggest prospect pool like Tampa Bay does for some reason. I gotta say, if I ever do make another episode, man, Tampa Bay's prospect pool, I could name them by the numbers. My gosh, they have so many. Callan Foote, the guy is going to be a first top 4D, top 2D. He's amazing. And they didn't even have to give him up for Ryan McDonough. All they had to do was give Rangers Nemestikov, who is a great player, NHL player, awesome, ready to go player. But you needed to get something else back there. There's some first round picks. You're going to probably end up having 30th or 31st in those drafts. Those guys are getting to the final. There's no way they're not. I'm sorry. I don't think Ovi can beat them especially without Backstrom. I mean, I don't think it's happening. I don't. I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to be proven wrong. I really like Steve Yzerman's way of running a team and signing them for good contracts and his trades. And as a GM, man, if we'd known his success early on, man, I wish that we could have kept him around as a GM. But honestly, everybody always points to Yzerman. We should have signed him. We should have had him as our GM. That would have solved all of our problems. And no, it wouldn't have. We would have not have had as much success as Tampa's had because they were bad. They were bad. Without Kucherov, without, all these guys, Hedman, all these guys they picked up through drafts, through development, through free agent signings with Tyler Johnson. I mean, you wouldn't have, gotten with all these guys if you didn't have bad years, like really bad years. I mean, after LeCavalier, St. Louis, like all these amazing players, they leave, they retire, they go other places, and that's okay. That's how the NHL works. I mean, you go into it, you have a great team for, let's say, 3 to 4 years, like Washington. Great example there. You have a great team. You had scoring on every line, and you depend on that skill every night. Now, when you don't have that skill, when you don't have all these crazy talented people on your team, it doesn't help at all. And those players that need to play over their heads have to do it on a consistent basis. And Vegas has proven that this entire year by just killing it at home. They have great depth. They have great players, and they really did get some help from the new expansion rules. Now, I actually overlooked this when I actually was just kept saying, how are they so good? How are they so good? I know why. Because the NHL changed the expansion rules from past teams that were honestly setting them up to fail. They allowed every NHL team to protect 9 forwards, 5 defensemen, and 1 goaltender. Same amount of goaltenders, obviously, but you get new rules in there. So it's 7 forwards you can protect, 3 defensemen, and still 1 goaltender. Now, you get 1 goaltender, which is great, but you get a lot more people to protect. I mean, just to give you an idea, they wouldn't have gotten Marchessault or Riley Smith. They would have protected them. Florida, I would have hoped, would have protected them from how bad that management team really messed up the identity of that team. But they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have gotten them. They still would have gotten Fleury, for sure. But you don't get the William Karlssons. You don't get those good players to come into your organization. Now, they did have William Karlsson through a trade to just take him. For some reason, they wanted to get rid of him in Columbus because he wasn't producing there, because he didn't have the team behind him really believing in him and putting him in those first-line minute roles. You have, a lot of players on that team like Artemi Panarin, all these guys that will take up those first-line minutes. But when you get a guy to come in and let you coach through your game and develop as a first-line player, like, a first-line winger as he is now, with 40 goals, my gosh. I mean, if you find a steal like that as an expansion team, my gosh, you're killing it. George McPhee really built the team. I mean, if there was a GM of the year, my gosh, that would be him. That would definitely be him. Of course, some other teams like Dallas did make some great trades and signed Radulov, and everybody said they won the offseason. Everybody said that, the Oilers would win the Stanley Cup this year. I didn't think so. I didn't even think they were going to when they first ended the playoffs last year. You have McDavid and Draisaitl, and then you didn't sign a bunch of people, traded Taylor Hall, and then for some reason you think that you're going to be good? You give these great contracts to, nobody. They don't really have any great contracts, Nugent Hopkins is making too much, I'm not saying they're bad players. I'm saying for the amount of money they're getting paid is comparable to other players that have better production. And of course, every player has bad years. I'm never going to bad talk a player and not realize that playing in the NHL is tough. It's tough, it's rigorous, it's exhausting. I mean, to go from what Larkin had played in Michigan, you play on weekends, you don't play as many games, and then you go to the crazy schedule that an NHL player has. Oh my gosh. I don't know how Yager did that at 42, but anyways. So basically, just to encapsulate all this is, in the draft, you pick up players, and the expansion teams got a lot of players from other teams that didn't understand that those players just needed more development, or maybe they needed more minutes that you couldn't share around on a team with a Doughty or a Tavares or with these big superstars on your team. You can't do that. So what Vegas did was they had a Jack Adams coach level. He's winning it this year, by the way. The Vegas coach, he is winning it this year. But they got a bunch of players with chips on their shoulders, and they just carried it. They carried their way to the playoffs. They've carried themselves through 2 series now. They swept the Kings, and they got through the Sharks like they were nothing. I mean, San Jose Sharks are no laughing matter. They were actually steamrolling into the playoffs with Evander Kane now, but yeah, no, I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights will try and beat Winnipeg or Nashville, and I think they'll have to try and beat Tampa Bay Lightning for the Stanley Cup, and I hope Vegas can win it. I don't think they will. I think Tampa Bay has it this year. I mean, they were pretty much going for it with that McDonough and JT Miller trade, but they're going for it. So I really hope that that's the Stanley Cup final, and I know the draft will go great this year for every team. So all in all, I think that the hockey world is definitely going to get a huge impact from a lot of these players, and it'll be very cool to watch them in the future. But I think, without jinxing it, I think that's who is going to be in the Stanley Cup final. But watch it be jinxed now. So who knows? Maybe we'll have OV versus PK. Who knows? That'd be fun. Who knows? I mean, any of these teams this year would really be a fun one to watch. I mean, I'll watch their games regardless because I'm a hockey nut. So who knows? But I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. So thanks for listening, and have a good one. Hey, how's it going? Just wanted to give a quick end of show update. This has been recorded right after the second game between the Vegas Golden Knights and, of course, Ovi. I jinxed the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hopefully this is not the start of me jinxing every single team I say is going to win. But, oh well. It was a great game. A lot of back and forth scoring. I'll talk about it more in the second episode. I had a lot of fun recording the first one and editing it. I'll upload it to YouTube and wherever. I don't know. I'll call it the Mr. Max Show. I really enjoyed recording this, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Thanks so much, and let's go Caps.